All right. Welcome to our final week. Um, this has just been a wonderful, wonderful time with you guys. The last 4 weeks I've really, really enjoyed. I think this has probably been um the most engaged and um yeah, and I think like maybe the most loving group that I've had come together. And so I feel like this has been a really special experience and a special moment in history. And I'm really honored that we got to spend these last 4 weeks together. And today is obviously not goodbye, but we will wrap up just this container. We'll do some reflections from last week in terms of your homework, and I'm hoping that maybe one or two brave folks would like to share some of the projections they came up with. And then we'll go into a 6-step process. Basically, I have this little fun calculator that I'm going to share with you, and it helps us figure out like how much we can afford to pay ourselves right now. And it, similar to the financial projections, it gives us like a way to kind of be like, well, what if I did this? What if I did this? What if I save for this? What if I need this much? We can kind of get a whole bunch of different ideas going there. And then I'll definitely leave some time for questions, discussion, and then there's a couple of things we can continue to pick up this thread in terms of just like thinking of other ways we want to be in community together. Um, and then also I have two quick things to share with you that are little updates on my end. All right, so reflections from last week. I'd just love to open the floor and just hear like, how did things go? Did anyone get a projection done? And if you're still kind of catching up from the weeks prior, like how is it going filling in the budget? How maybe even reflections on your personal budget too, if you're still working on that, if that's still kind of coming together. Some of these activities take a little time. And then I'm curious if anyone feels like they want to be big and bold and share some of their projections that they came up with.
I have a question on
Yeah, go for it.
when we're looking at the 30% for taxes. Um, when we then pay like ourselves, so that's like the business taxes, right? And then when it comes to us, do we then have to account for more taxes coming out of that, like pay to us?
No,
Oh,
nope. So you've paid the taxes. Yep. So we'll look at that in the calculator today too. But basically, what you're looking at is your gross. Like it might be helpful if I just many of us are not auditory learners, and we are more visual learners. And so let's just pull this up real quick. So this is what we'll play with today. Sorry, hold on. I'm just letting folks in. So basically what you're looking at is like you have your gross income. And so remember, gross is like all the money that comes in, no exceptions, all the money that's coming in to the business, not to your home, but to the business. And then we're going to subtract what it costs to run the business, right? So we'll subtract what you pay for your website, what you're paying for your herbs, your bottles. Like you are going to have a cost of goods. And I sent out a cost of goods calculator last week. We can talk about that too if anyone got stuck on that one. And so after we take out these expenses from the gross income, we have what's called net income. And that is where we're going to save 30% of that net income for taxes. So if my gross income was 10,000 and my expenses were 600, and this is looking at per month, I would have a net income, right? 10,000 minus 600. I've got 9,400. Then I multiply 30% by that. And that means I need to save 2820 for taxes. And so after that, this 6,500 is what is all mine. No more taxes need to be paid on it. It's all mine coming into my home or coming into the business. I then decide how much of that is going into my home, how much of that is going into savings, how much of that is going to pay debt. That's the bucket I have left over. Does that make sense, Molly? Cool. Totally. We can talk about that, Casey. One thing, Casey said, I'm worried that because I'm behind and I won't have the accountability of showing up for class, that I'm not going to finish this work. So, for one, we have office hours, which are free, are next Thursday, exact same time as today. So, if you're still catching up, I cannot encourage you enough to like pretend that that is week 5. Like, just come to office hours with your budget and check in and let us know where, like, how far along you've gotten. I'd actually love to hear, will everyone put in the chat, like, how far along in these 4 weeks are you currently right now? Like, what are you currently working on in terms of the things we've learned? Just so I can get an idea. Charlene. Charlene says, I logged on late. What are we worried about? So many things, Charlene. Yeah. Okay, Eileen, you're still building your chart of accounts. Yep. Okay, cool. Casey, you've started all the things but haven't finished any of them yet. Susie, you just finished filling out the expense sheet and you started the COGS sheet. Great. Arden, you're still finalizing both the personal and the business budget. Yep. You still need to put in projections, Aaron. Molly, you're working on the business budget and the projections. Fritz, you mostly had all the homework done before the course, so you're working on updating filing in latest numbers. Great. Flami, you have all the business spreadsheets. You have not started on the YNAB for the personal budget. Okay, cool. Hobbs, still uncovering personal budget versus business. Great. Elise, last week's homework and still need to contact partners accounts for YNAB. Okay, cool. I think if you guys feel comfortable, I mean, the other thing we can do, before I say something I can't give you. The other thing we can do, if you guys want, is like we can treat office hours next week as week 5, and we can keep going into October 9th with week 6, and we just keep working on the homework. And you come here, like I'm truly more than happy to give you that space. And for any of my West Coast people, we could even maybe move it up to like 10 a.m. if people want that. But this, like, if that feels helpful, we could absolutely do that. Okay, people are saying, yeah. Okay, cool. Let's do that. Then what we'll do is let me figure out how, if you're okay with it, I think what I'll do is just for my ease for the 9th, I would love to just send like a Google Calendar invite instead, so I don't have to go like mess with Humanitics and try to create a whole new thing. I'm just going to send you a Google Calendar invite for that 9th. And then for office hours, you can just register right here.
Emily, two things. Jessica is asking for 10 for the West Coast folk. And also you missed my post that I think you should be paid. And I
Oh.
think when you said to us, I love doing this, and you all paid me $1,000, our thought was like, so keep doing it. And there's $1,000. So I just want to say, I think you should go back into maybe after the 9th, but like just let us sign up for another 4 weeks. You
Totally.
can look at it later in the chat, but I realized you didn't see
Well, I
that.
appreciate that. You're very kind and thank you for thinking of me too. And what I can do is I'll just I'll make some way that you can contribute a donation at the end. And if you feel like donating some money at the end, that's great. And if not, like it really is no pressure. The point of this work is to be accessible, and that really is of the most importance to me. And so there's no pressure around it. Um okay, I'm just checking on you guys. Take our money. I love you, Joe. Thank you. It means a lot. I really do appreciate it. So I'll do that. I'll send that in an email. So we're gonna plan on just continuing for another 2 weeks. If we feel like we need more time after that, we can do more time after that. The other thing is I'm gonna run Liberatory Finance again in January. And so part of your homework was I was wanting to encourage for some of you, it will absolutely make sense for you to run through this program again in January and thinking about like what it would look like for you to kind of commit to that, knowing you've got like some support around this for throughout the rest of this year, and then you could do the program again, right? And so just know like this support doesn't need to go anywhere. It's here for you if you need it. Um, okay. Any other thoughts, questions, reflections? Anyone want to share? Did anyone get to play a little bit with a projection? I had somebody email me and say they had done it. And now I'm spacing on who it was. Or does anyone want to share like their budget? Does anyone want to show it to us? We can look at it. I know that's kind of scary.
I could speak a little to projections.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Go
The
for
I
it.
have like because we're a gym, we have a membership um like app that we use that tracks everything for me. So that actually will project what our next month's revenue will be, so I can at least see that
Great.
a month out. But it's like a little different because we have like recurrent revenue. If somebody's on a membership, I know that they're like kind of what to expect within a few $100s every month. Um, but that's as far as like I project out. Even looking like year over year, it is changed so much. I don't know if that's because like we're new and we're just people are starting to hear our name more and we're growing, um, but that is certainly helpful. I don't know if anyone has tools like that that can kind of like help you do that. That way, I don't have to do all these calculations, but um, so I at least know what is going to happen a month out roughly and can plan for that. And it's been kind of hard just because things are changing so much. I don't have a complete 2024 because we moved in the middle of it, and it was kind of tough to be like I was getting paid from another gym, so I didn't know how to handle that exactly. So um,
How long have you been in business, Joe?
I've been like at this new location since May of 2024, but I've been doing this for like a decade. I was just at a different gym, kind of hidden in the back. They just like were like, yeah, you guys can go in the
Okay.
back and we'll
Yeah.
ignore
So
you.
this version of the business is relatively new.
It is, yeah.
Okay.
Um, but I have much better tools now um, to help with some of this stuff. So, um, but still trying to figure out like I roughly know at least what will bring in. I can project recurring revenue, but I don't know. We'll like sell energy drinks and
Yeah.
bum tape for like just like stuff like that. Or if we do like we just did an apparel order, we'll do like a pre-order for that, just to get
Yeah.
stuff in. So when those things, that's gonna increase revenue. But I find that that kind of stuff because the margins are pretty thin there, and we're not trying to like make a ton of money off people, so we
You're not
don't
trying to
charge a ton for
5X
that.
your feature.
No, sell Celsius for $5 a can. No, we don't do that. It's like 20, like we're making maybe 25 cents on it, like just enough to
Yeah. Yeah.
make sure we're paying the bills.
Yeah. And when you looked at the projections for next month, did you find like, were you content? Were you surprised? Were you like, oh, maybe we need to do something else? Like what did you learn by looking at it?
I feel like we're in a good spot. We've kind of just been like, as long as we're somewhere, like I ideally like to see our reoccurring revenue over, like 12,000. That's
Hmm.
usually a good spot because it ranges. It can take anywhere from 8 to 10,000 a month to run the gym. So because everything costs so much. So the higher that number is, it's like, all right, cool, that's gonna come back to me.
Yep. Yep.
So that's kind of the
Do
difference.
you guys have employees or no?
Yeah.
Yep.
So we have like part-time coaches that help out, um, which is great because just to get like a little break in the day, not have
Yep.
to coach, that's pretty nice.
Yep. We'll talk a little bit about like um paying yourself versus paying others in a minute here, and like how that can get tricky. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're paying
But
others,
we'll
paying ourselves.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anytime that we can get our recurring revenue to go up, I know that's gonna be at
Yeah.
least better for me.
Yeah.
Um, so that's kind of what I focus on, making sure that that number stays.
Yep.
Yeah, and that I think is a reflection on what we're doing at the gym. Like if people are staying and they want to be there,
Exactly.
they want to be a part of everything. So
Yeah. I would encourage you to also think about like, so in terms of the projections, like I think you said, did your rent just go up? Was that right?
it goes up every year.
Yeah, so I would have
It's
that
lovely.
projection in there of like making sure that you're accommodating for things that are going to increase year over year. And then
Mhm.
um and then the other thing I would look at is like, and you can maybe play with this a little bit with the calculator we're going to use, but like if you increased reoccurring revenue to 20K a month, like what would that allow you to do in the business, but also like in your life, right? Like I know you've shared, I think you guys have some personal debt or business debt as
Oh,
well.
yeah,
So like
yeah, for
factoring
sure.
paying off that debt, like what would that look like? And that's not to say like, okay, your new goal is 20K a month, but just kind of exploring like what becomes possible at different like benchmarks along the way in the forecast.
Right. I struggle with like goals. Like I feel like it just comes back to like, all right, I gotta do more.
Yeah,
I gotta
totally.
get more. Like, and that just always seems to be like it's just like struggle with that. It's like figuring out what is enough.
Yeah,
And then we do run into like issues like the space is only 1,700 square feet. That's not that big.
right.
So
There's
we
a
can only
limit.
fit so many people at one time before it starts to get unsafe.
Yeah,
Um, so we're running into that. Yeah, all these things, they're kind of like all layered together. Like, yeah, we could bring that up, but then people are going to be on top of each other if we're bringing in $20,000 of recurring revenue. That'd be insane.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, what is enough could be a whole set, like, and
totally.
my numbers too, I will include taxes in our expenses. So like I have that kind of like our accountant will let us know what we owe quarterly, and I just try to pay that.
Yep.
So I don't have to take out whatever's left there is like tax free because I've already paid taxes on it.
Yep.
If that makes sense. So
Yeah.
it's not as like it
Yeah.
feels like enough.
Yeah. That's good. That's good. I think sometimes it's like sometimes it is, if we think about projections and we're like, oh, that just means like I'd have to do so much more. There is sometimes also room for like I need to do different. And so it's not always that we need to do more, but sometimes it is for sure. But there's also space sometimes to explore like how else, and like we don't know until we know, but how else could I make those same numbers happen in a different formula, right? And so that could be room to explore too. Um, yeah, like I was thinking, I don't know, like things like do you ever host like events or like trainings or like things where you're not increasing membership, but you are increasing revenue in a different way? Like are there other revenue sources we could pull maybe on like a quarterly or biannual basis that
Yeah,
might.
we'll do stuff like especially like in the summer.
Hmm.
My wife's a teacher, so she'll help out a lot in the summer. She ran like we do like Olympic style weightlifting.
Yeah.
And she just ran like a general strength and conditioning class for a bunch of people, and that was like really great. like that. A lot of people were excited about that. It's like, I forget, maybe like 6 weeks that she did that. We'll bring in, we'll host like courses and they pay us out on that. They basically just use our gym for the
Yeah. Yep.
weekend. So definitely looking for ways like that, we'll do, like, we have a weightlifting meet that we host with another
Yeah.
gym coming up at the end of the year. That's another way to bring in revenue.
Yep.
Um, a lot of it is like there are all these ways to do it. It's like the actual execution of it and having the time to
For
do
sure.
it. And I've been getting better at like handing things off and letting people
Mhm.
take
Mhm.
ownership over it and do, and so that's been helpful. And then we just try to, pay really well and make sure everyone feels taken care of.
Yep.
Um, and we're working on that process too to try to make it feel like they're a part of that decision making process as well. And
Yep.
so that's kind of hopefully 2026 we improve there.
Yeah. Totally. Fritz, do you want to share a little bit?
Yes.
Do you want
Uh,
to share your screen or do you want to just tell
yeah.
us? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Can I share my screen?
Um, go ahead.
Okay. uh,
Excellent.
can you guys see it?
Yes, I also sing through transitions.
Great. So this is we kind of operate like spring and fall. This is our very first year charging for anything. So, these are like the numbers from the spring. And basically, we were mostly only able to pay ourselves because we got this grant for $5,000.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but so we were kind of like talking through, okay, how many retreats would be sustainable for us to offer like next spring? And also like how many would be sustainable for us to offer, but also how often do we have the house that we're able to host these retreats out of?
Embracing.
Which is normally like between 4 and 8 weekends per spring or fall.
Yep.
So we were like, okay, what if we did 2 retreats per month starting in
Nice.
February? And this would be like the amount that we would want to make off of each retreat,
Yep.
like gross income. And then this would be the rates. So we would basically raise our prices like $200 because right now our lowest rate is only like $415, which is great because a lot of people can make that rate, but we've also noticed it's like people within that range also have a tendency to kind of be like, well, maybe I can do it, maybe I can't. Like, I don't know. It's
Sure.
just,
Sure.
yeah.
You're not
So,
getting like the buy-in and the commitment.
exactly.
That's
Yeah.
successful. Yeah.
So, kind of just building up the courage to raise the rates and then also so that we don't have to rely on making our goal with a full retreat, which would be like 6 to 8 slots, just
Mm-hmm.
basing it off of 4 slots instead.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were like, well, we still would want to try to, sell some more merch and apothecary stuff that we have.
Yep.
So making a goal for that as well. And then having like what our overall goals would be for like what the bare minimum would be for us, then like
Yep.
the bare plus, and then the ideal.
Yeah.
Really, like this one is probably the bare minimum, but just
Okay.
based off of like where we're starting, it's like this would be like a good stepping stone, I feel like.
You'd even
Um,
call that like phase one, instead of thinking of it
yeah,
as the bare minimum, like this is phase one of many phases to get us to where we need to be.
yeah, I like that.
Yep.
And to some extent, all of this is kind of a bit of a mute point because we want to offer all this shit for free. So like if we could get a grant, you know,
Yeah.
or we could
Yeah.
find like a big fish donor, like the meeting that we had yesterday with one of our collective members who's kind of like leading development for us is like naming like 6, you know, more celebrity-esque people that we can try to like figure out who our connection point is to them and then have them be like influencing their whole network to fund this stuff, because again, this is like a business that we didn't intend for it to necessarily be a business,
Mhm.
but we want to pay ourselves. So
Yeah. Yeah. I love
yeah,
this. You've done an amazing job here. Huge
thank you.
congrats. This looks so good. Yeah. And also I think like it's to your comment of like a mute point. It's actually not that, because with this projection and with these numbers, you now have a clear idea of like what you want to ask for.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like you're not just like, I just need some money. Like you now have a very clear, you're like, no, I need 36K is what I need.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking for right now.
Mhm.
Um, and knowing that there are stepping stones along the way to getting there. Is
Mhm.
the $5,000 grant you got, is that a grant that can be repeated or was that a one-time grant?
I think it can be repeated annually, so
Okay.
we can apply for it again
Yep.
next year.
Cool.
Yeah.
And it didn't require any, not, did you have to get a fiscal sponsor or can
Mm-mm.
just anyone apply for it? Oh, cool. That's
Anyone can
awesome.
apply for it. It's the International Trans Fund, so they fund projects by and for trans people.
That's so dope. I didn't know that existed. That's
Yeah.
amazing. The other thing you could look at, have you looked into any like agricultural grants?
Um, we have a little bit, but we don't really have like a lot of land right now.
Okay.
So it just kind of feels like, but maybe we could get one to get land. I don't know.
Sometimes, like, so for instance, you're in Virginia? No,
Yeah.
Virginia. Like here, we have some grants where it's like if you have any connection to land. So I was actually even thinking of like your apothecary type stuff, like if you're growing herbs in some capacity, if you have like literally any connection to land, there are some grants that you can apply for.
Okay.
Like we have NOFA here. I'm assuming you have something of the equivalent.
Hmm.
Do you know?
I don't know. I'll have to look.
NOFA is like the Northeast Organic Farming Association.
Okay.
I would look into that and see too. I think like if you could piecemeal, one of the things I've done, and I think it's helpful to think of it this way too. So like I can offer things for free now, 8 years into business, right? Because I've
Mhm.
figured out the levers that work to bring enough funds in to allow me, like we talked about this, I think maybe last week, of like around planned generosity. And so
Mhm.
like you might not be able to start out offering these things for free, but
Mhm.
that can absolutely still be like a core fundamental value of the business plan to like get
Mhm.
there, right? Like maybe that is part of like that's phase 2B or like that's
Mhm.
phase 5, right? Like
Mhm.
whatever. But we can work towards that as long as we can get, we got to get some revenue going in so you can get up off the ground and make
Totally.
this manageable. Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
I just think it's cool that, putting this together and then it's something like you can go back and just like look at and be like, now you have the data there. You're not just like going by feel. And then
Right.
like, looking back when I started out, it was like, all right, I had to work a second job. I was trying to become a weightlifting coach, but I like built houses. And then over time, I just was able to shift to be like, okay, now I can like take away a day of building houses and coach more and
Mhm.
slowly shift that over time. So like
Mhm.
it just like takes time, but it's cool to like have this so you can see, oh, all the work that I'm doing is like resulted in something. I just
Mhm.
like stats. I don't know if it's like the baseball nerd in me, but it's just like, cool to see numbers. I don't always need to like go up, but just to know like, oh shit, this is where I started and this is where I'm at now. You wouldn't know that
Yeah.
if you didn't have this kind of stuff. So even though it can seem like it's a lot of work, it
Yeah.
like at least gives you like the sense, oh, all right, my actions are leading to something.
Totally, yeah. And
And
it's
then
like
to
it's nice to have that infrastructure for sure to be able to like track stuff now. And we were kind of going off of feel, which is why, we didn't make a lot of money this year, like we were just like, oh, well, how much would we want to pay for something like this? And just kind of going off of that versus like how much it actually costs to like pay ourselves, that living wage and all the expenses and stuff like that. So, um, yeah, I think like it is, and I appreciate what you were saying too, Emily, about like it can still be a goal, like it can be phase 1 or 2 or whatever. Like just because we need to charge more now doesn't mean that we're going against like what our intentions are. It's just like hard in the heart, you know?
Yeah. And I think like when things are, at least for me, when things are hard in the heart, I need to talk about it and I need to be really clear about it. And so like this is y'all have such a beautiful website. Like this could absolutely find space on the website of like
Mm.
this is hard in the heart for us right now to be charging for these retreats because in a post-capitalist world, these retreats are free. And right now we're working super hard to figure out how to make those retreats free. If you can help us do that, if you have ideas around how to do that, like we want to hear from you. Right. So
Yeah.
we can be very clear about what your intentions are and where you're trying to get this to be.
Hmm. Yeah, cool. Hobbs,
Cool.
do you have anything to share? Anything to add?
No, I mean you went in there, and even just the inspiration to write about it. One of our pillars being transparency. I'm always gonna jump on that for like I think it makes the input and the output just no matter how hard it gets a lot easier. So that's a great direction point for me is just think about like okay, like the numbers, my head goes out of the door, but for writing about it, it stays in the room, and that's a good direction. So appreciative of that point and
Yeah.
all the other points. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for being brave and sharing with us. All right, let me get I did put just an example. I put the NOFA grants and funding opportunities link. That's obviously for the Northeast. But just so you know, you can even do like just simple Google searches like grants near me for small businesses, grants for me for micro businesses, grants near me for startups, like things like that. You can just start to look of like what type of funding is around me. The other thing I'll help folks search for sometimes is like um, small business services for free. And sometimes there can be these like weird ass grants out there to help you do like all sorts of different things. And some of them are a little more rigid, some are more flexible, but just making sure you're covering all your bases and seeing if there's any money out there that hasn't like that you're leaving on the table that you could be grabbing. Yeah. Okay. So let's move in to oh, cool. Eileen also shared the funding library. I think I can get oh, I love the New Economy Coalition. If you don't know these folks, they're so, so cool. And I really encourage you to check them out. They're very dope. They have a really neat just on the topic of like pricing, their how they calculate member dues is really neat. And so this is just like I use this as an example actually in my pricing workshop. But if you are looking for other ways of exploring sliding scales and like access to things, they do like your ranges are a percentage of your annual budget, and there's a cap of what that could be. So that's kind of a creative way of like, instead of, if anyone else has had experience with doing sliding scales where you're like, if you identify with these things, you're in this bucket. If you identify with these things, you're in this bucket. Most people are really terrible at self-selecting what bucket they land in because most of us don't really want to spend any money. And like, we're all like insecure in our finances and not sure like what is going on. But if you offer an equation, that's pretty dope because there's no like, the numbers are what the numbers are, right? And so it's less about how I feel and it's more about what the reality is. So that's something you can just kind of think about. Yeah, the pricing workshop will be fun. I love talking about like ways that we can do sliding scales that actually work, because I think a lot of people try sliding scales from a very good place and they are and unfortunately they do not work well in some situations, or like they can be executed in a way that doesn't end up being financially solvent. I've done that a million times. And so we want to just be careful of that. Okay, anyway. Okay, so I would love to just, I know I asked this question maybe a week or two ago, but I'd love to hear in the chat how many folks are currently paying themselves. And that can be you pay yourself once in a while, that can be you pay yourself consistently. Just how many folks are paying themselves in some capacity? They're pulling some money into their household. Cool. Great. Okay, cool. Yeah, and then my next question, and you do not have to answer this, but I would love for you to tell us in the chat how much you're paying yourself. If you know, like on average, how much are you paying yourself right now? Izzy, Izzy said, I paid myself last month by buying art with my business account. Okay. Cool. Okay, yeah. Elise, that's a helpful frame. So you're paying yourself the cost of your expenses. Oh, yeah. Okay. Millie, you said usually consistent. Okay, cool. All right, this is helpful to know. And then for folks that are not paying themselves yet, will you share with us in the chat just like what are some of the barriers to paying yourself? And it might be literally as simple as like there is no money, and that's okay. But I would love to hear like what is getting in your way of being able to pay yourself right now. And for folks that are paying yourselves like inconsistently, can you tell us a little bit about what you feel like is getting in your way of paying yourself more consistently? Yeah, so Charlene, Kim, no money yet. The business is too new. Totally makes sense. Izzy, you want to pay off your debt first? Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So yeah, that's a good one, Fritz. I don't have the, oh my God, our faces are not cooperating. There we go. You don't have the infrastructure around paying ourselves consistently and don't trust money will come in regularly yet. Yep. Aaron, you said our monthly expenses vary, so it's based on what's in the bank. Eileen, we keep thinking of the org as a volunteer situation. We'll talk about that, but really want to address worker pay, including for ourselves. Molly, you work part-time outside of the biz, so whatever that doesn't cover for your personal bills, you take that income from the business to make sure you're covered. Yep, that makes sense. Totally. So a few things like when we don't set up the structure, we run the risk of one of two things happening. Either you run the risk of overpaying yourself, right? And then, or sorry, underpaying yourself. And what happens here, I think it's so important to look at the idea, the concept of underpaying yourself. Like if we are anti-capitalist, if we are looking to build a post-capitalist future, if we identify as socialists, you are literally subsidizing the business with unpaid labor. So like just kind of thinking about how underpaying yourself is truly antithetical to your values, right? And like it can be easy for us to apply this towards others. And it pains me how hard it can be for us to apply this to ourselves. But first and foremost, like you would never expect another person to labor for you unpaid. And so we should not expect that of ourselves either. But also, I think really important that we don't necessarily think about is like, if you can't afford to pay yourself, and I mean like over periods of time, right? In the beginning, it's like many of us cannot pay ourselves, and that's totally normal. There's nothing wrong with that. But if we go on for years not paying ourselves, this makes me very concerned that there is a fundamental problem in the business structure. Not a fundamental problem with you or your ideas, but the business structure has a fundamental flaw if you cannot afford to pay yourself, right? Like there is something wrong with the structure of the business, whether it's the pricing or the offers or the products or the customer, whatever. Like there's something off if you can't afford to pay yourself. So thinking about it that way too, it's like it's not just about you and like doing the right thing for yourself. It's also like, did I build something that makes sense and is sustainable long term? On the flip side here, overpaying yourself. This is the trap that I have gotten into in the past. Dipping into the business funds whenever you need cash. This can create a lot of instability, right? This can put us in a pretty risky place for the business. And we're kind of we're pulling from something that might not actually exist. And so that can really bite us in the ass pretty quickly. And we want to be careful of that. Yeah, Jessica, you said you're trying to figure out what you need to get stable. And it's really not I'm wondering if you meant to say working. You said worrying. Working. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So and that's where like that's why we start with the personal budget, right? Is we have to figure out how much money do we need to come into the home. If we don't have an idea of that, it makes figuring out this equation very, very tricky. And you'll see that in the calculator. It's the last step. It's like, I got to know how much needs to come into the home. So sometimes we are like I said, we're not there yet. Most businesses start with little or no pay. Most businesses do not start out with like an abundance of money unless you are independently wealthy, in which case I'm not sure why you are here, but we can talk about that later. But most of us like are not independently wealthy, right? We did not like come to this with some bucket of cash to like play with. Most of us are starting, you know, with our own unpaid labor. Some of us have partners, family members, that are financially supporting us, right? Or they're giving us resources in some capacity or another, whether it's their land, their machinery. Some for me, like a big thing I've inherited is like just generational knowledge, right? I come from like 3 generations of entrepreneurs. So like that is a huge plus that I'm coming to the table with. And it's totally fine if temporarily we are not paying ourselves, but we cannot stay there forever. That like just is not going to work. You're either going to burn yourself out or like the business is going to fold. So we have to figure out how to make this equation work. And so what I want to do is we're going to hop into this spreadsheet here. We've got, and I think it's easier if we just look at the spreadsheet than read these steps because examples are always easier. So I'm going to send this to you in the chat, and you're going to make a copy just like you did with the business spreadsheet. So I'll give you a sec. Let me know in the chat when you've made a copy and you're in here. Ready. Gusto is a pretty cool company, I think, in many regards, if you do end up needing to run payroll in your future. They're who I used when I had an employee for a little while. They also used to have, I don't know if they still have it, but they have this amazing referral program where like if you refer someone and they sign up for Gusto, you get like a $300 check in the mail every time you like referred someone. It was bananas. I don't know if they still do it, but I was on top of that for a little while. Okay, cool. Oh, good to know. Joe said he uses Sure Payroll. Oh, they have a $500? Well, that sounds very lovely. Yeah, I know. I'm like, it makes sense. Like they're gonna make a killing off of a new client. They might as well like kick a little money to us minions referring their product out. Oh. Well, there's your new revenue source, Joe. Can you just get on the referral train? Can you become an affiliate and make lots of money referring this out?
I don't want to do that.
Oh,
I
sure,
want to
Ryan.
coach weightlift.
I know, right? Uh, okay, Molly's ready. Excellent. Oh, Millie, are you an S corp? The only reason you would pay yourself, you're an LLC and your accountant wants you to pay yourself on a payroll provider? That's expensive. I would inquire about that because that's not cheap. Usually you only switch. Yeah, I would be very curious about that. Oh my God, Zoom just thought I was playing music by the tone of my voice. I would be concerned about that because running payroll is expensive. It is not free. It is not cheap. And the only time that you would want to be doing that is if you were legally an employee of the business. And that would be, Joe, are you an S corp? How does that work what are you?
LLC. And so,
And do you
sure,
run yourself on payroll?
no.
No. Okay.
Yeah, my accountant takes I think I'll get a 1099 and then
Yeah.
she like takes that and does everything. And then sure payroll takes care of everything. Like tells me what the employees will pay in taxes, what I pay in taxes. And then there's an additional charge on top of that. But it's pretty easy. It's like ever since I used to give people cash and it was like super sketchy. I was like slap high five, like slapping them, like here's your money,
Yeah. Yeah.
drug deal style.
Nice. Nice. Yeah. So Millie, we're gonna find you a new accountant. And yeah, usually I would only suggest being on your own payroll if you've moved to an S corp. And I do not know enough to explain to you um, all of those details. But payroll is kind of expensive. So most folks, like when I had an employee, I ran my employee's payroll on Gusto, but I just had like an automatic withdrawal for myself from my checking account. And we're going to talk about how to do that. Okay, so we're all in here. We've all made a copy. What I want you to do, and I know for some of you, you're still working on this. So for the sake of the exercise, I want you to just kind of do your best and guess. But what I want you to do here is take your gross income. Can you go away, toolbar? You're going to take your gross income from your business spreadsheet. And how we're going to do that. For right now, what you can do is like, let's say you're filled in through September. You're looking at, for me, it's line item 13. My year total right now is, we can round up 63,000. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 63,000 and divide it by 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Right? I'm going to divide it by 9 months. So I'm going to say 63, 1, 2, 3 divided by 9 gives me 7,000. I've been averaging 7,000 gross per month. I'm just looking at the chat, making sure I didn't miss anything. Okay. I think we found Millie a new accountant. Great job, guys. That was fast. Y'all move great. Okay, so I've got my gross income. Is anyone confused around how we calculated gross income?
Yeah, sorry, can we do it one more time?
You got it. That's what we're here for. All right, so in my business budget, I'm looking at my total in-house on the first page. For me, it's line item 13. Might be 12 or 14 for you, depending on how many lines you put in there. I'm coming down to the end here. So my year total. So as of the end of September, I've grossed, we're going to round up 63,000, right? So I'm going to take that 63,000 and I'm going to divide it by 9 because there's 9 months I'm looking at, right? I don't want to divide it by 12 because I don't have 12 months of data. I have 9 months of data. Does that make sense? So I'm going to go 63,000 divided by 9 gives me 7,000. So I'm averaging $7,000 a month so far.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So then if I have cost of goods, I would just ignore that. We all have people coming in and out. I would just bulk all your expenses here. And so the way we're going to figure that out is we're going to come back to our business spreadsheet. We're going to come over to our expenses tab. I'm going to come down here. Let me zoom out so we can see the whole thing at once. Total expenses. For me, this is line 101. If I come over to this corner, my total expenses so far have been $6,100. So again, I'm going to take that 6,100 and I'm going to divide it by 9. I've got 677. We're going to find out that Emily is not making enough money this year. All right, so there's my expenses, because what we're looking for here, right? This is monthly net income. So that means on average, how much money that came into the business on a month perspective minus how much on average does it cost to run the business? That leaves me with what's called net income, right? So that's the money left over. We've got $6,323. I'm going to pause there. Any questions on how I calculated monthly net income? There's truly no stupid question here.
Since taxes are part of my expenses, basically that net income number is like the final number. Because I'm not.
You would want to remove your taxes from here because we're going to put them in down here if you're going to follow this calculator. Yeah. Otherwise,
Okay.
you're going to have a skewed number there. Other questions? We good? Okay. So I've got my net income. You'll see here that that there are equations. Do you see up here how there's equations here? So you're only typing where there are white boxes. Don't type where there are these gray boxes in here. Okay, so we've got our monthly net income. The suggestion is to save 30% of your net income, not your gross, but your net, right? So we're going to save 30% of that net income for taxes. So that means every single month I should be putting aside $1,900. I don't know why this continues to blow my mind, but it does. Hobbs is like, yes, it's an inordinate amount of money that is going to be spent on terrible fucking things. I digress. So I have saved this $1,900. Maybe I'm putting it in a savings account every month. I know, if we just became millionaires and billionaires, we wouldn't have to pay any taxes. So I'm going to save this money every month, in theory. We'll talk a little bit about what do you do if you can't afford to save that money every month and you have to spend that money to feed yourself and your family? We can talk about that because I've done that too. So what is left over? This is called owner access, right? Me as the owner, I have access to this pot of money left over. So after my expenses, after taxes, I have $4,400. I am in a fortunate position that I do not have debt right now. I have a mortgage, but I do not have debt that I am going to calculate here. If we have debt, we're going to want to put the minimum monthly payments due in these buckets. If you have like student loan debt and you're like, we pay that out of our personal family bank account, I would not put that in here. But if this is really looking at like business debt. Does that make sense? Oh, yep, Joe just asked. This is more business debt. So if I had taken out a loan to get a van or a truck to move my shit around, that would be here, that monthly minimum payment. And right now we're just looking at minimum payments because I want to know what is the bare minimum it's costing to run, right? And then we could start to add in like, what if I wanted to pay off that debt faster? We can play with that after. So if you have debt, and if you have like a lot of different lines of debt, this might take a second for you to figure out all those line items. That's okay. And then the next bucket here, oh, hold on, let me pause. Any questions so far? Have I lost anyone?
Like, what about like a credit card debt situation?
Yeah.
Like, I have to put a lot on a card to get like through the busy season, and now I'm like paying it down. Would that go there?
Yep, that would go there. Definitely. Yep. Credit card debt would go there. If you're paying off your credit, so Joe asked, we put everything on a credit card to get points, and then we pay it off every month. You leave this blank. You do not have debt. If you're paying off the credit card every month, that is not debt. But if the credit card, if for instance, in Molly's situation, let's say you had to like purchase $20,000 worth of product and you're going to pay that off over the course of like 6 or 9 months, or you had to buy a new refrigerator on the credit card, right? For the business, you're going to pay that off over the next year. Like, let's put that there. Any other questions on that one? Those are good questions. Okay. The next part, and this line, like this bucket here, for some of us, particularly if you are right in the beginning and you are not making enough money yet, and you just need to take home everything you make, this might not be relevant yet. Eventually, we want to get to a place where we've got some savings plans, right? So last week we talked about my example of like, I need to buy a roof eventually. That's not a business expense, but maybe I've decided that I want to pay for it through my own personal revenue, right? For me. I don't want to like burden our family finance structure with this. I want to see if I can figure out how to pay for that myself. Or I'm bougie. I like Apple products. I'm going to need a new laptop one day, and those are insanely expensive. And so what we're looking at is how much would that, let's say the roof, Joe told me that my roof is not going to cost me $50,000. So I went down. I went down to 30,000 to make a realistic number here for us.
I don't buy it.
Mostly because Joe's going to drive up here and help me do my roof myself is what we've now decided. If anyone else wants to come build a roof with us, we're going to do that in approximately 2 to 3 years.
So this is Liberatory Roofing now? I like it.
That's going to be the next seminar that you do, how to roof a house. Stay tuned.
How to replace your roof, and we're going to start replacing mine. Yeah, no.
Anti-capitalist roof.
Exactly. So let's say, so the thing here, the equation here is like, we're figuring out what the dollar amount is. Maybe you had like a refrigerator. How much is a refrigerator? Let's say we need like a commercial one and it's like $10,000. And you're like, okay, I need that refrigerator by the end of the year. So that's going to be, I've got October, November, December. I have 3 months to come up with that. Woo, I'm gonna have to save $3,300 a month to make that work. Is that feasible? You're like, no, that is not feasible. Okay, what does it look like to buy that new refrigerator in 2 years? Okay, that's $400 a month I need to save. Maybe that's more reasonable. What can I figure out in the meantime so I don't need my refrigerator? So basically what we're looking at here, I'm gonna just delete these for the sake of our example. Let's say I'm going to take this out for right now. We're going to hold on to my savings goal here of this. So now, before this was the pot of money I had access to. With my savings plan of over the next 3 years, I want to save up for this $30,000 roof. What I have left over is basically $3,600. And so here's the pivotal moment where our personal budget comes into play. I need to know how much money I need to bring into my home every month. And if I said I need to pay myself $5K a month, I'm $1,400 short right now. I cannot afford to pay myself $5,000 a month and save for the roof and pay my taxes. Those are not options. What if I remove this? I still can't do that. I still don't have enough money. So that's where my options are. I got to figure out how to make more money. I should be making more than, this should probably be more like 10 if we want to make things right. Right now I have a difference of 1,500 and I could play with that for my roof, right? If I want to put my roof back in. Let's make my roof cheaper. We don't need a fancy roof. And we're going to do it over 3 years. Why didn't my equation happen? What happened to? Oh, it's because I deleted all the equations in there. That was silly of me. Momentarily. There we go. Let's just make this. And let's say, what would it look like if I was grossing 10? Oh, now it makes it work, right? Now I can pay myself 5 and I can save for the roof and I've got a tiny bit left over. Let me look here. I just realized these are the things I'm looking at in YNAB. Eileen, tell us more.
Oh, like in YNAB when we're figuring out the budget for the next month, for example.
Mm-hmm.
Or when you can put in targets, so the savings plan, like and it will calculate for you like how much you need to assign to be on top.
Nice.
So
I love that.
Kind of like the monthly savings, right?
Yeah, I love that. Cool. Questions around this? Does anyone want to share? Did anyone fill in the equation and have a number? It's okay if you don't have enough information yet to fill it in. I totally understand. We're going to keep going these next 2 weeks, so you're going to have the information very soon. What if I can't? What if it is 7,000? And what if I do take this out and I still don't have enough? What do I do then? What if this is the situation? Molly's like, look away. hide. Yeah. So some options. Yes, Izzy. One option is I have to change this number. I can't do that. I can only pay myself 4,000. I have to go to my partner and say, "Dear sweet love of mine, I'm not making enough money. I gotta take a pay cut." And that's happened. There's definitely been moments in my life where I have had to take a pay cut. I've had to pay myself less to make it work. There are moments where, ooh, Casey, another good one, where I got a part-time job. Do y'all remember that? Look, I had a part-time job all in 2024 because I could not make those numbers work. Not yet. Trade in my house for a yurt and my children for goldfish. I feel like that is the most viable option, to be honest. I mean, my children would love to be goldfish. Yeah, so like I had to get a part-time job. I could not make the numbers work on my own yet. Yet, right? But look, I started to figure it out. I let go of the job. I'm still not totally there, right? I'm not totally where I need to be, but I'm getting there. That's okay. And you know what? If I get to the end of this year and I'm like, son of a bing bong, we didn't get close enough. I've been overpaying myself again. That's okay. I still have more options. I get to try again. I can keep going. Who wouldn't love to be a goldfish? You don't live very long, but I think that's fine. Another thing that I could do if this comes up and I'm like, I can't, things that happen. This is another option. This is a bad option. I wouldn't choose this option, but this is an option. Is you could be like, you know what? I'm not going to do that. I'm going to save 20% for taxes. And look at that. You can do that. Sometimes we pull from the allotment that is going to taxes and we kick this problem down the road. That is an option. Again, it's not a very good option. It will definitely bite you in the ass eventually, but maybe you have a plan. Maybe you're like, no, Emily, I'm going to kick that expense down the road because I did my projections and I'm projecting an extra 25K coming in Q1 of 2026, and I'm going to pay the taxes back then, right? So maybe you have a plan around that. There's a few different ways that we can kind of play with this. I would say like try really, really hard to not mess with this bucket if you can, but sometimes you can't help it, and that's okay. You're not a bad person, you know? And there's a big difference between like starting off with this stuff versus like, myself being 8 years in and playing with this. So just know like they're just like when we looked at Fritz's spreadsheet and Hobbs's spreadsheet, like there's phases, right? There's phases of this that we build up towards. Let's see. Yeah, totally. Oh God, Kiana. Yeah, absolutely. Kiana, you said you want to redo your homework. You think your brain needs the math practice. Yeah, for sure. Millie, you said, can we talk about quarterly taxes and stuff next week? Or maybe I just need a new account. No, we can absolutely talk about quarterly taxes next week. Feel free to bring any questions you have about that. Jessica, you said, I'm trying to figure out whether I need to quit my business or get an extra job or what. I'm coming back after 2 devastating years of grief where I'm not exactly sure how I survived. I'm sending you a hug, Jessica. It's why I signed up for this. I want to get back to being stable and having the tools. I need a better business plan for sure. Yeah. When I asked you guys yesterday, like what else you want to learn and what else you want to talk about, Flami, I hope it's okay. I'm using you as an example here. Flami reached out and was like, I need to understand like what is a viable business structure. Like, how do I know? And this is a very good question that all of us have to grapple with is like, is this work? Does this make sense? Like, can I make this make sense? And knowing when something is viable and when it is not, it's like, and there's no one size fits all answer there. There have definitely been moments in my business that I'm like, and there have been moments where my partner has been like, do you have this? Are you sure you know what you're doing? And I'm like, uh-huh, sure. Yeah. And then I go and find my biz bestie and cry. Right. Sometimes our partner is not the person we confide in about our business, and that's okay. I think that is a moment where like if you are having that question of like, is this viable? I need like an outside perspective. Like that is a place where someone like me is useful. And I think like it's good to tap someone in if you are having those questions. Um, and also like making sure that you have, I would encourage you, don't ask that question until you have filled in this work. Fill this work in first and then ask that question because you might have an answer by the time you fill all these spreadsheets in. Because just like I showed you here, it's like there's a lot of different ways, or maybe, there's a handful of different ways that I can make this equation work. I then need to sit back and ask myself, am I okay with those ways to make that work? Right? If I'm Joe and the only way I can make this work is to work more, the answer might be no. The answer might be no, that's not going to work for me. I don't like that solution. I don't want that solution. Right. And so then I got to step back and think like, is that the only way to get me there? And if so, like maybe this isn't going to work. Maybe this isn't a viable business and that's okay. Like that doesn't mean you failed. Doesn't mean you did anything wrong. It just means that version didn't work out.
Emily, let me say one thing about that.
Yeah.
The thing is that I was really fine as long as I operated with that idea that, when the work came, I'd do it. I'd hire other people to help when I needed it, and that was it. And then we grew in that. To be frank, that way other people were telling me I needed to grow. Oh, you need an operations director. You need a full-time staffer. Oh, you need a space. Oh, you need to get that loan. Like, I didn't really want to do any of that. And I did it all. And now I'm experiencing debt for the first time in
Yeah.
the business, right?
Yeah.
Because I kept saying, what do I need the loan for? And they're like, because
Yes.
everybody gets a loan. You get a loan. And I
Yeah.
was like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
okay. It ended up saving us at a time we started losing contracts that were mostly around DEI, but also just around fear.
Yeah.
Where nonprofits just wouldn't spend consultant dollars at the beginning of this year. But I wanted to really clarify that like growth thing that's bombarded in our heads.
Mhm.
That is what got me to that I don't know the answer about this
That's
business.
a really good point, Pauline, because I recently I soft launched like late last year and I filed my LLC this March. And it feels like a lot of people that I've talked to in the business development space, the first thing they ask you is, do you need capital? I'm like, I have a laptop and a home desk at my dining room table. No, I don't. I'm not like products based. And I think part of it is like their services depend on creating those capital loans for new businesses. So yeah, I'm definitely of the mindset of like I invest when I have the money already in the bank to spend out. And for the most part, like I spend a little money up front for a website and things like that. But other than that, I'm pretty frugal.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, and for a lot of service providers, like we don't need to take out a loan for anything. Like you don't have some large, equipment you need to invest in or a retail space you need to invest in. Like often, I think like debt, for me personally, debt makes sense when you need to buy a one-time thing that is going to make the business possible. For me, debt does not make sense to cover like monthly expenses. Like I would not take out a loan to cover payroll. I would not take out a loan to like cover an ongoing marketing budget, right? Like I would take out a loan to buy an oven I would take out a loan to buy a truck. I would take out a loan to buy land, like things that are kind of a one-time purchase. I think like those things can really make sense to take a loan out for. There's some like, upfront expenses to get a business going that can make sense to take a loan out for. But to just kind of like float us until we figure it out, I think that's a really precarious place to be in terms of debt. And I would encourage you to like use caution if someone's encouraging you to do that. Um, I know for me, we haven't talked about this, but I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, I took on a full-time employee and it went very poorly. and and I learned a lot, and it was like, and basically what I learned very quickly was that like I was always going to pay that woman uh before I paid myself, which I think there's nothing wrong with that, like I think in many ways that was completely in alignment with my values. I was paying her more than I was paying myself the entire time I had her. And my thought was having an employee will allow my capacity to grow, right? Like I'll be able to bring in twice as much revenue if there are two people. But that really wasn't the case. It wasn't like I wasn't cloning myself, right? And so it got to a point where like we had to be really honest in our household that like we could not afford for me to pay myself so little. And I had to let her go. And it was so painful. And she was so angry, and rightfully so. Like I had created this environment where she was taken care of and she was getting her needs met. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, I can't meet your needs anymore. Right. And that really sucks. And that's super hard. And for those of you, like just quick in the chat, like who is thinking that like hiring will eventually be part of your plan? Like that the full version of your business does not include just you. Yeah. Yeah. And it's totally okay if it's like a long time from now. Yeah. Yeah. And so these are things that we got to think about. It's like, with hiring, I used to teach a workshop on hiring, and it's like you have a couple different options there. You can wait until you make enough to pay for you plus someone. You can not pay yourself and pay someone else and work assuming that eventually you'll be able to pay yourself. I would not encourage you to hire someone and underpay them. But that is something that some people do, right? But like there's going to be this like growing pains period where you have to figure out how to like it's a little bit of like what comes first. Do you grow the revenue big enough that you can cover the expense, or do you take on some debt to bring the person on in assumption that you will grow fast enough to cover them? So yeah, things to just kind of think about. And there's no like one right formula there. It's, making sure that you're making choices guided by your values, and that again, at the beginning of this conversation, that you're not like not paying you indefinitely is not a choice. That is not an option. It's not an option that is like grounded in respect for you or others. And so like I would really encourage you not to bank on like, yeah, I'm going to bring someone else on and I'm just not going to pay myself indefinitely, right? I found this quote from Kate Tyson. If you don't know her, she's lovely bookkeeper out of Philadelphia. And she said, everyone in your universe should make a good living, and that means you too. So just making sure that like you're also getting paid, you know. And then like the last thing I just want to share, I know we're at time here, so if you have to hop, I totally understand. But for some of us, yeah, totally, Hobbs. In a post-capitalist world, we would just be supported by universal basic income, and we wouldn't have to worry so much about this. But this sentiment keeps coming up for me that like failing at capitalism might mean that you are succeeding at building something else. And so like if what you're trying to do isn't quote working in the market, it doesn't mean that you did anything wrong or that your thing isn't like needed or wanted. It might just mean that like your path is going to take longer or look different. And it might mean that you're really trying to build something that doesn't exist yet. And that's super cool. And like, yes, we still have the real struggles of like, yeah, totally, Charlene. We might have the real struggles of like figuring out how to make the expenses work. But I think it's important to feel inside your body that like failing at capitalism it might mean you're doing something radically right. You know, it might mean that you're doing something really, really dope. And that's cool. And we should hold on to that. We shouldn't like let that go. Okay. So just a couple of things real quick. Thanks, Hops. All the workshops that I've mentioned that are coming up, these are all listed on my website right now. There's a tab for workshops, so you can find them there. Like I mentioned, Liberatory Finance is going to run again for 4 weeks in January. So just keep that in your mind if you're thinking about, like, I just want to keep focusing on this. You know, ideally, I think you probably focus on this topic for like 6 months, like really get it in you and get it in the business so it's working. And then lastly, I just wanted to put this out here. You know, we were talking about doing things differently sometimes in the business to make numbers work. I've toyed around and kind of teased out to my email list this idea of like semi-private group coaching pods. And I have someone who is looking, and I have someone who is interested in this. And so basically, she's looking for 3 other people to join her. And it would be, for me, it always comes down to money. So it's $219 a month. And we would all meet, you know, the 4 people in the pod plus me, we would meet every other week for 4 months and work on whatever it is you want to work on. So she is actively looking. She's not like in a super hurry, but she's actively looking for some humans to do this with. So if that seems like something you'd be interested in, it makes coaching more financially feasible for folks, but also I think it's kind of cool. You have like a little crew to roll with for 4 months, and I think that could be neat. So if that's something that's interesting to you, just give me an email and let me know, and I'm happy to organize that for folks and see if that works. I love that, Kiana. Let's see. Okay, just make sure I didn't miss anything there. And then here's our homework going out, and I'll send this out in the email too. But I'd love for you to set up a way of paying yourself regularly. This could be $25 a week. It could be $100 a week. It could be $100 every 2 weeks, right? It could be something like that. But getting to a place where it's an automatic withdrawal. So you call your bank and you're like, I'd like to set up an automatic withdrawal from my business checking account to my personal checking account. And they'll ask you how much. You might have to come in and sign a piece of paper. And then it's set, right? And you can stop it at any time. So if like shit hits the fan and you start to freak out, like you could just call your bank and be like, please stop the automatic withdrawal. I have it in my calendar. It says Emily gets paid, and it's every 2 weeks. And so I get a little reminder and I'm like, yep, right, it's coming. So that I'm not being like totally blindsided if something went wrong. But I really, really would love for you to set that up. And then continue working on these projections. We'll check in next week. So if you haven't signed up for the office hours link, just sign up for that so you have the Zoom link for this. And I'll send that out in the email too to remind you. And just keep working on these, on the budget, on the projections. You know, the more okay, cool, Elise, thanks for letting me know. I had a coach that said what you pay attention to grows, and I like feel like that is true in all areas of life, right? Like I paid attention to my garden this year and the garden grew, right? If we pay attention to our spreadsheets and our finances grow. It's like inevitable that if you focus on something, it will evolve, right? It'll change over time. But if we ignore it and we don't look at it, no worries, Erin. Thank you so much. It's hard for it to continue growing. All right, I'm cool to hang out for a couple of minutes. If you guys have questions, things you want to chat about, I'll put this here too. It's just, I'm sure you know how to find me at this point, but if there are other ideas, things that you would like to learn, I'm more than happy to hear about that too, and set up ways for us to have other containers like this. Thank you, Ryan.
We're coming up with business ideas in the chat.
I was like, what's happening here?
We have 3
great.
new
We're
businesses
brainstorming.
that we have created.
Yeah, we're
It's
just
like half
going.
of
Yeah.
things. I'm sure Ted with other stuff.
I had asked in the chat, but I think it got missed, and that's totally
Yeah,
fine.
please tell me,
Was
Susie.
there a projections sheet, or was that just something we like make on our own? I love your sheets. They have like changed my life.
Okay.
So is that something we make ourselves, or do you
Fritz
have
made
one
a
of
very
those?
fancy one. I think did you ask about Fritz's? Fritz made a very,
Yeah.
maybe Fritz wants
Or
to
was that something?
lead a class on fancy
Yeah.
equations. So the projections, what we were doing is at its most basic, we were putting in numbers for the rest of this year that we anticipate happening. So if you know of any revenue that's coming, we were putting that in. We were definitely putting in expenses. So for instance, things that are like a monthly expense, you should be able to like obviously project that out, right? So that we have some idea of like what is happening with the expenses. And then more what we were looking at with the projections. Oops, wrong one. No, that's not what I wanted. Like I have 4 blue icons all next to each other. So in last week's, and if you didn't get the email with this follow-up, definitely let me know and I can send it to you again. But we were looking at these kinds of projections. So for instance, like if I know that I charge $3,500 a month for a 4-month package, and if I sign 3 to 4 new people a month and my expenses are X and I'm setting aside Y for taxes, like how much is that over time? Right? So we were kind of asking some questions around that. We had another example here of like, for someone who's just started out and they don't have a lot of data to work with, it's asking if I want to make $3K a month. Again, this is all rooted in the personal budget, right? We need to know how much we're asking to make. If these are the things I sell dried herbs, I sell herbal consultations, and I sell workshops, and I've got some price point ideas for those things. How would I make that math work? Right. And so these are kind of like 3 different scenarios that would make me $3,000 a month. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you
so
much.
our options were to like use ChatGPT or something like that to help you with those projections, or pull out some pen and paper and sit down and start doing the math and figuring it that way too.
Awesome.
Yeah, you
Thank
bet. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, thank you guys. You guys are the best. Okay, cool. Oh, thanks, Fritz, for sharing your sheet.
Yeah, that's amazing. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Hey, Emily, can you hear me?
Yep. Hi, Charlene.
Hi. So I put in an application for the VSAT grant and I did what you said about putting the like start date as the date I applied. And I think in this case, it kicked me in the foot because so it says that I'm not eligible because I haven't lived in Vermont for a full year as of the start date. So I'm coming up on my year anniversary in Vermont in November.
I would
And
ask
so I
them.
applied in September.
Yeah, I would just ask them if you can modify your application and pick a start date in November.
Okay.
I think that would be reasonable. I don't see why they would have an issue with that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And then, do you know if I do that, if they'll still let me know, like, before then if it's approved, or do I just need to like keep asking or?
Yeah. I would ask them when you send that. So what you can do is email, and in case anyone's like, what the heck are you guys talking about? If you're in Vermont, there's a grant that will allow you to work with me potentially for free for 4 months. And this is the information right here. And they're just a little funny about it. Like they want, because I'm an open enrollment situation, it's like people can enroll at any point in time. I don't have these like start dates, and they require a start date. And so, but you do have to have, I totally forgot that you have to have lived here. You have to be a resident for a year prior to applying. That's a good note for me to update in this. So what I would do is when you email them, I think I have their email in here. Yeah, right here, this info@vsac.org. You could actually, Charlene, I would email grants@vsac.org.
Okay.
That'll be, I think that will send you more directly where you need to go, and just say like, I didn't realize that I had to have been a year resident. I'll be a year resident in November. Can I change my application start date for, and then just give whatever that specific date is in November. And then I would ask in that email, when will I find out if I qualify? Like, will it not be until, can you not process my application until I've been here for a year? And we should find out that way.
Okay.
And I'm sorry
Cool.
that it's not like right now for you.
No, that's all right.
Yeah. But if we get it, that's like awesome. It makes me happy.
Yeah.
I know. I'm
Cool.
like, I wish everyone qualified for it everywhere.
I know.
That would be
I'm glad it exists though. That's really
It
great.
is. It is. It's great. And it's been so helpful. I mean, it's helped dozens of people work with me without paying, which is so helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, I will do that and I'll be in touch.
Awesome. Thanks, Charlene.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Molly, any last questions for you?
Well, I do actually have.
Yeah, go
I
for
was
it.
gonna email about them, but like I'm kind of at a point where I might. So I'm looking at getting a commercial kitchen for the bakery side of the business, so I can focus a little more on wholesale. Because in northern Michigan, like our farmers market season is really just tourism season. So it's like Memorial Day to Labor Day, and then things really die down. But with doing that, I'm kind of like exploring doing that as a separate LLC and separating out that part of the business from the herb farm and the herb stuff. Partly too in the sense of like long-term goals is the herb farm really. Like that's what I'd rather, or, most want to be doing, but like the bakery is what's bringing in the the money.
Yeah.
And
Totally.
but then that's making it a lot harder to then figure out my budget. And even like my plan today was to go like open a bank account, but then I'm like, well, what do I do it under? Slash, I guess I'll end up having two different ones.
Where are you located again?
Northern Michigan, Cadillac.
Do you know if there's a law school near you?
Not near, but like probably I don't know which university has a law school in Michigan, but yeah, it would be accessible, I think. I don't know if it's University of Michigan or Michigan State that would have it.
I'm just looking for. Okay, let's look at this. I'm not so good at. I think I'm gonna pause the recording because I don't know that this was really necessary.
Yeah.
Recording. Okay, so, and I can send this to you in an email. It looks like the University of Michigan has a community enterprise clinic. And so this would provide transactional legal services to small businesses, nonprofits, social enterprises. Basically what I want for you is like, can you get some time with an attorney to figure this out for free or very low cost? We have a program here at Vermont Law School where you can get 10 hours of free legal aid.
Okay.
Because it's like their law students need to practice.
Uh-huh.
And so, and they're supervised by their professor who is like a registered attorney. And so like you can kind of get both, like both people are, it's like a mutually beneficial relationship. And so that's what I would be looking for if I were you, is like, where can you get, it looks like you got a bunch of universities that do this.
Yeah. That's nice.
And I don't think you would need to like, my guess is offers a virtual legal clinic for Michigan as well. Ooh, this one's cool. Michigan Community Resources. It offers virtual legal clinic for Michigan small business, nonprofit leaders with a free 45-minute consultation with volunteer attorneys.
Nice. Which one? I don't know if I can see that.
This one
Oh,
here.
yeah, the Michigan Community Resources. Okay.
You know them?
Mm-mm.
Okay. Well, I'm going to grab all of this. I'm going to just send it to you. What's your email?
Molly Kathleen CATHLE.
Hold on, give me a sec.
Yeah. Or I could type it in the thing if that's easier to copy paste.
Yeah, do that.
So it sounds like, so from your perspective, like needing to talk to a lawyer about it just to see the legality of having like two businesses.
Yeah, I would just ask, like, do I need two businesses? Would you suggest, like, are there any considerations around? I mean, you can also like, I don't know, are you open to using ChatGPT?
Yeah.
The other thing you can do is like literally dump the whole context of your question into ChatGPT and just ask, like, what do you think I should do?
Okay.
And if it says you definitely need an attorney, then I would like just go that way. But if it's like, oh, that's a really simple, like, it's just two LLCs and you want this one on the bank account and like just has a definitive answer for you, that would also be helpful because then you're just kind of like, okay, great. I'm just going to move forward with that on my own.
Okay.
I think it's regardless of what you're doing, it would be very beneficial to just establish a relationship with some attorney somewhere so that when you have questions, you know where to turn and you're not left feeling lost.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
I don't know why, but I never thought like, oh, having a small business, like I would need to be connected with a lawyer.
Yeah, totally.
But that makes sense.
Yeah. Have you already filed an LLC for
Yeah.
the business? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm already incorporated. My one thought is that possibly in the future, like maybe the bakery side of things would be something I would maybe look to sell to somebody else. Like, and then, shift the focus back to the farm.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons I was thinking maybe it might be good to have them separate from the beginning.
Yeah. I would also ask, like, what's the pros and cons cost wise of having them separate too? Like,
yeah,
it's going to cost you more to have them separate, but maybe it's a negligible amount and that's okay. And like what it gives you in like safety and freedom outweighs the cost of having them together. Very good questions. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, you bet. Molly, can I ask how you found me?
Yeah. So my friend, so I'm in this like Signal chat group with like some other herbalists and small business makers, and they just like posted, and I'll have to look. Let me see if I can find which person, but they just mentioned that like I'm not sure how they found you, but let's see, Willow. She goes by Willow on this chat. Let me see if I can find more.
It's always so fascinating to me when I find when I meet people that are like totally outside of New England. I'm like, where did you come from? Tell me so I can find more of you.
Yeah.
'Cause you're
Well, I'm
not
definitely gonna post post again on this thing of saying like, hey, I took it and it's really good.
Thanks.
Her name is Catalyn, Katalyn. She says she's located in Central Ohio.
Huh.
Freelance consultant working mainly with nonprofits.
I don't
And
know.
values align small business on fundraising, marketing, messaging, strategic planning, and disability inclusion. So
Cool.
I can't see what her.
She posted about Liberatory Finance.
But yeah, she was the one that shared the link to the Liberatory Finance class.
Nice.
Yeah. But like her name, like on her, you know, like when it comes through in the chat, it says Willow. So I don't know if she goes by like Willow over there. But yeah.
That's cool. Well, I appreciate you looking for me.
Yeah, I'm really grateful.
Yeah, you've been awesome to have, and I've really enjoyed getting to know you, and you've had really good questions. So thanks.
Yeah, thanks. Well, and I've just been like, I think that's the struggle I've had so much with these, like trying to get, like years ago before we moved up here and had land, like I tried to do SCORE and then like,
Yeah.
and I just keep feeling every time I'm trying to get business advice, I'm just getting hit with that capitalist thing. And I just like, and I don't know, it's just so important to me to like,
It's so tiresome, and it makes it really hard for me to like refer out to, because I'm like,
yeah,
people are like there are all these free services out there, and I'm like, and they all just like suck, and I'm like, this is such a bummer. Like you could be doing this so much better. And there's one here we have, it's called like Mercy Connections, and they do a decent job. Like I think they, you know, they really try to like tone the capitalist like rhetoric down. But they're still not like, I think there's a difference between like toning down that like hustle, urgency, push, 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 grow, grow, grow. There's a difference between like toning that down and actually offering an alternative. You know? And so I'm like, I want the alternative. Like, can you also take it the next step and like give me some other ideas?
yeah,
And so, you know, I think, yeah, a lot of these spaces I've created are just like, for me, out of an urgency to like see something else for myself too, you know?
yes,
Yeah, I don't want to be surrounded by that nonsense either.
yeah, yep.
Well, will I see you next week for office hours?
Yes.
Cool. Awesome. I look forward to it.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. I'll see you soon.
Yeah.
Thanks, Molly.